In this video, we're going to talk about email marketing. Now, before you send out an email through Pardot, Pardot wants to ensure that as a marketer, you have explicit opt-in from the prospects. This means prospect has given permission that they are happy to accept emails from you. In case you buy a list from outside and you send out emails to prospect, and if that email start bouncing, and if that bouncing rate is more than 10%, then you will get an email from Pardot like this, which is going to say that have you read our policy and what you have done to get the list of prospect. You cannot say that you have bought a list. You have to explain how you got the prospect in Pardot. In order to avoid this, it's always better that whenever you send an email, that email has to be honest. You have to be upfront what you are selling. You have to ensure that as a prospect, he or she should be able to opt out easily. You should also be able to delete the data of prospect if prospect wish to do that. Another thing interesting would be that Pardot is CAN spam and GDPR compliant. This means that whatever is are the legislation in USA or European Union, Pardot is compliant with it, and we also have to make sure that as a marketer, we have explicit permission from the prospect. Now let's talk about email. In Pardot, you have something called as templates. As a marketer, you can first create an email template where you can go ahead, provide a name, folder, campaign, HTML and text, and you can say that whether this is available for list emails where email will be sent to a static or dynamic list of prospect. It could be autoresponder email or it could be for engagement programs. It can also be one-to-one. Once you have created the template, where then we can make use of that template into an email. Before that, let's talk about content and in content, dynamic content. Take for example, you want to ensure that the content on your email changes based on certain feature or of the prospect. Example could be if prospect gender is male, then send a specific email versus if the prospect gender is female, then send a different email. So the if you want to change the content, then we have to create a dynamic content. So let's take for example, if we to add dynamic content, let's cancel this. Let's say gender content. Select a folder. We'll say the default content. So default content, we are going to specify if we do not know the gender of the prospect, then a specific image will come. Let's do a Google and see if we can pick up an image from Google and insert it over here. Let's pick up this particular image. I'll say copy image address and put it in the URL over here. Say OK. Save it. Now the variation, if the gender is male, then we want to display a different image over here. So if I go back to Google and then search for boy image, let's pick this one. Let's say image versus add variation. If gender is female, then we want to display a different image. So if I just search for girl over here, take for example this girl, save it. So what we have done, based on a certain attribute of the prospect, an example is gender, we are going to display different content. If the prospect is male, then he will see this image. If the prospect is female, then she is going to see this particular image. The default content is this image. Now let's make use of this particular dynamic content in an email. So if I go to email, new list email, say gender email, select a folder, associate it to a campaign. Let's talk about A/B test. A/B test helps if you have two emails and you're not able to decide which one will generate more prospect activity. For example, if you have an email with a subject line save 40% and another is exciting offer for you, save 40%. Now we can send these two emails to a subset of our prospect. Whichever generates more activity, that particular email wins. That is all A/B testing is all about. And then the remaining 90% of prospect will get that winning email. So let's not do A/B test right now. Hit save. I'm not going to apply any template. Let's hit skip. Now, this is known as variable tag, where at the runtime, whenever we are sending this particular email, the first name will be picked up from the prospect itself. How we can insert it? We can click on this particular variable tag. Any kind of personalization that we want to do. For example, if I want to insert the city, I can insert the city over here. Then we also want to insert the dynamic content. For that, this lightning icon that we have, we'll click that. We'll select one of the one what we selected, and we'll say OK. Then we can delete these things. This is a best practice username, user job title. So these all are picked up from the person who is going to send the email from Pardot. And we also have something called as unsubscribe, where a prospect is able to unsubscribe. Then let's hit next. Okay. Now let's look into the preview. And we'll select a prospect. Let's take, for example, I select any one of these prospects. So since for this particular prospect, there is no gender assigned, so that's why we are seeing this particular image. Now, if we open the prospect list in a new tab, and let's go and select one of these prospects, edit, custom field,